All right, we still have a few people joining, but I think that we can go ahead and kick off. So thanks once again. My name is Daniel Pigeon. I'm product marketing at CyberInt. And with me today, we have Jacob C. Lutin, who is the Global Director of Sales Engineering. He's joining us from the office, the CyberInt office, just outside of Dallas, Texas. And so just a few housekeeping notes before I pass it over. First off, this webinar is being recorded, just to let everyone know. We will share a link to the recording in a few days after the webinar is complete. And lastly, questions. Feel free to drop any questions that you have in the chat. If we see them come up along the way, we will try to answer them throughout the webinar, but we will also leave about 5 minutes at the end to answer any questions that you might have. So please feel free to drop your questions in the chat. And with that, I would like to pass it over to you, Jacob.
All right, thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. My name is Jacob Silutin. I'm the Global Director of Sales Engineering at CyberInt. And let me share my screen and we can get started. It actually stopped sharing my screen for some reason. Let's share it again. All right. Daniel,
I think we can see. Yeah, we can see.
All right. I'm not. You can see my screen. If I scroll through, you can see it.
Yep, I can see. I think we're good.
All right, that's it indicated on my side for some reason. Okay, great. So here's our agenda for today. I'll start with a little bit of introduction about myself, and then we'll take a look into the sector as a target. What are the implications of the business, financial services, and insurance sector when it comes to cyber threats? What are the outcomes of these cyber threats when it comes to risk and when it comes to monetary loss? And then we'll look at the top trending vectors of attack that are related to the industry, like phishing, info stealers, account takeover, ransomware, fraud and identity theft, and DDoS attacks. Lastly, we'll look at some recommendations on how to stay secure, what you can do as a very quick and effective way of reducing the risk, and what you can do in a long term with more tools and more time. So I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Jacob, as I mentioned before. I've been in the intelligence space for over 15 years. I've started my career in the Israeli military, and I also served in the Israeli government, all in intelligence-related jobs. 5 years ago, I transitioned into the private space, and I've been with threat intelligence organizations like CyberInt since. So I've been with CyberInt for the last year and 3 months, and today I lead the sales engineering team globally. So let's take a look at the industry as a target. So the first kind of a graph I want to talk about is the number of reported breaches per industry in 2021. We'll also look at some data from 2022, but just kind of like as a means to set the tone for this discussion, we can see here on the left side that the finance sector has been the most targeted out of any other sectors like healthcare or public administration, education, even retail. All of these sectors were less targeted in 2021 and less targeted in 2022, with 690 breaches reported back in 2021. If we look at some information from 2022, we can see a few interesting takeaways from the calculations of breach costs for the industry. So if we look at the top here, see that healthcare, the cost of a breach for healthcare is a little bit higher than the cost of a breach in the financial sector. However, if the financial sector is still a close second place, and in an average, if we look at all of this table, the average cost for data breach in 2022 is $4.35 million. That's according to the IBM report that we're looking at here. So 4.35 is the global average. By the way, the average cost for a data breach in the United States is 9.4, so almost double of what it is globally. That's the average cost of a breach in the United States. However, if we look at the average cost for a breach for the sector, for the let's call it financial sector, the average cost is 37% higher at 5.97, which is almost $6 million per breach. We've mentioned that the sector is the second highest average cost, and over here in this smaller table, which is also taken from the same report, we can see that with a small dip back in 2016, 2017, the average cost year per year only goes and grows with time. And that's the global cost. And again, if we mentioned United States in particular, it's almost double. This is another interesting survey that was done by EY, Ernst & Young, talking to chief risk officers. So they surveyed, I believe, how many, I don't remember how many of them they surveyed, but they talked about the top priorities for them as risk officers. 72% of the surveyed officers mentioned that cybersecurity is the top priority. Now, 72 is a calculation of 58% here that say, okay, we have the inability to manage cybersecurity risk. So that's a very top priority for them, 58%. And they also mentioned 22% here as the inability to manage the third-party risks. So out of those 22%, if we look at 58% out of the 22, we get the number here. So as you can see, it's a major concern when it comes to chief risk officers across different financial organizations. Now, if we look at the major attack vectors, we see that we have the usual suspects, as we call them: email compromise, phishing, vulnerability in third-party software, stolen and compromised credentials. We also have cases of malicious insider, social engineering, and so on. So these are the average cost and frequency of data breaches by initial attack. So if the attack is originated from phishing, that will be the average cost. If it's originated from stolen credential, that will be the average cost. What is interesting to look at is the two smaller tables on the left side and the right side. On the left side, we see the average time to identify and contain a data breach. As the mean time is somewhere around 277 days from identification to containing a breach. That's in 2022. The interesting thing is on the right side is the average cost of the data breach based on the life cycle, meaning the relationship between the cost and how long it takes the organization to find out and contain the breach. So if we look at 2022 on the right side, we'll see that if the life cycle is longer than 200 days, the breach average cost is $4.86 million. And if it's under 200 days, the average cost is 3.7, which is $1 million less, basically 25% less, or 20, yeah, somewhere around 25% less than what it takes, what the average cost is for a longer period of time. So the conclusion that we draw from here is that the quicker we mitigate and contain a risk, the quicker we identify a risk, and the quicker we mitigate it, the less money we waste or lose based on the data breach. So with that in mind, we'll jump into various use cases, like what we mentioned before, phishing and info stealers and account takeover. Bear in mind that the motive will be that we want to detect that these attack vectors and these ways into organizations as quickly as possible, so that once we detect them, we know that less time has passed and we managed to secure or quote unquote lose less money while we're doing the detection and mitigation. Before we jump into the example, I just want to kind of show a couple of interesting data points from the recent days. The most recent dump that is related to the financial service, and let's say the recent most major dump, was published back in March 6th, earlier this month. A cybercrime marketplace by the name of Biden Cash has released information about over 2.1 million credit cards. So that's one of the ways that the threat actors gain money off of their breaches, is that they take whatever they manage to steal from an organization and publish it on a marketplace and sell them as separate units for prices ranging from $10 to $20 to $30. You can buy a credit card with the CVV number, with the information about of the individual and expiration date. So that's just one of the outcomes of those types of breaches. Looking at our platform, Cyberint's Argus platform, we collected in the last 3 months 2 million plus unique new credit cards, encompassing those credit cards from the Biden Cash breach, and duplicating them, we are at 2 million unique cards that we've collected in the last 3 months. And over here on the right side, we see an example from our platform for the way that we collect those credit cards, with the latest ones added to our platform at the time this screenshot was taken, which is yesterday. Yeah, this was yesterday. I added this in yesterday, and we can see that these cards are fresh from yesterday. And if we go into our platform today, we'll see cards from today. So this has continuously been added to our platform for monitoring purposes. Okay, so let's dive into the use cases individually and talk about some of the vectors of attack and into the organizations and what they mean to us. So let's talk about phishing. If we're looking here at this graph, this is an interesting group that is titled APWG, or the Anti-Phishing Working Group. It's a group that is comprised of various individuals in the cybersecurity space, and they try to monitor phishing attacks and try to make a sense of what's happening, who's been targeted. So Q3 report, which is one of their latest reports from this organization for Q3 of last year, they monitored or observed over 1 million phishing attacks. And that's the highest number ever recorded in a single quarter. So again, we see that as everything else in the security space, everything is on the rise when it comes to attack vectors. So more phishing, more compromised credentials, more DDoS, more everything is just going up and up. So phishing is not different. What's interesting here is that we can see that 23% of all phishing attacks were observed by this group targeted the financial institutions. So that's the largest piece of the pie here. You can see on the left side, 23% for the financial services, 70% for software companies, and the rest are in lower percentages. But we can see that there's a lot of targeting when it comes to the financial industry. Now, what is considered to be a phishing attack, or how phishing attacks actually work? On the left side, we have our victims, okay, or targets. It could be employees of the organization, employees of the bank, employees of the insurance company. It could be the customers of that bank or insurance company or financial service. And it can also be the third parties or partners that are using the services of that bank. Now, the attack vectors or phishing techniques are varied, starting from impersonation on social media. So someone could create a fake LinkedIn page, for example, and pretend to be somebody from the company, ask for information, contact information, or maybe even account or credit card information from there. impersonating websites, copies of your official websites, or websites that claim to be in partnership with your organizations that require some sort of login information or credit card information, emails that contain malicious links to maybe one of those websites that we mentioned before, or just links to download malicious malicious software on the computer or malware, emails that contain malicious attachments. Here's your invoice for Q1. You click on it to download it, and it's a malicious file. Websites that you go into, or documents that are embedded with malware. And the objectives, or what happens if you are attacked or if you fall victim into one of these types of techniques, is it's resulted in either the deployment of malware on the machine, and that malware collects the information, or it's just resulted in stolen data. So if you go onto a website, you enter your information, it's just stolen directly from there. And we'll look at a few examples for phishing, and we'll also look at a few examples for the types of malware that reside on these machines in a few slides. But let's take a look at this interesting example back from 2021 for FINRA that alerted on a phishing campaign using multiple impersonator FINRA domain names. So they said not only, hey, we're being targeted by phishing, or our customers are being targeted by phishing, but they also mentioned the actual domains to be on the lookout for. So we can see FINRA reporting, FinPro FINRA, and Gateway to FINRA. All of those were mentioned by name by the company, stating that, warning customers and partners, hey, don't receive any emails from these guys, block them on your firewalls, block them on the email security gateways, and just be aware of these specific imposter domains. What we do at Cyberint is we actually have a mechanism to alert on these domains at their inception, and also follow them through the life cycle of if and when they become a phishing website. So over here, this example, we see an example that we use in our demo platform for an active phishing website targeting the company that we've identified. In this case, we can see the URL right here. This is for a bank, and we have obfuscated the name of the bank. The domain itself, the URL itself, is like a support center of some sorts, with the name of the bank here mentioned here. One of the things we do, we also do logo detection. So I obfuscated the logo here, but that's one of the reasons that we were able to pick up on this particular website, because of the logo and because of the similarity to the bank's name. We can see the screenshots here, and I know it's a little bit small, but it says here surname and last name, and how would you like to log in. Basically, this website steals the credentials directly from the website. The victim goes in, types in their last name, password, and so on, clicks next, nothing happens, but on the back end, the information goes to the threat actor. So this is one way of reporting it. At Cyberint, we also have a takedown service, meaning you can click on this button right here to request takedown, and we'll take care of this website for you, meaning we'll go to the hosting provider and request for a takedown, which is based on cybersecurity related evidence, like we see here. We have an in-house team that takes care of all of our takedowns, and our mean time to resolve is usually less than 48 hours. So most of our requests to take down those malicious websites are done within 48 hours with very, very high success rates. In the past 3 quarters, we've been in the 90s percentile for success rate, so 90% and above success rate. So that's phishing. Let's move on to our next example for info stealers. So kind of a high-level explanation of what an info stealer is. Info stealer is a type of malware that resides on the endpoint. It could be a personal laptop, it could be a phone, it could be a corporate PC, whatever it might be. The info stealer resides on that machine, and its objective is to collect information over time from browser sessions and send it back to the CNC, basically the command and control server of the threat actor that deployed that info stealer. What information do the info stealers grab? So they can grab information from, again, from your browser, and it could be any information that you put into the browser. If you go to your Facebook page, you type in your username and password, it will take that and send that to the CNC. If you go to your bank account, if you go to your bank's website, you type in your username and ID, or password, it will grab it and send it to the CNC. If you go on Amazon or eBay or whatever shopping site you go to, and you enter your credit card with the CVV, with the expiration date, with the name, with associated billing address, it will all be grabbed and sent to the CNC. And we can also see some other examples like phone numbers and crypto wallets, authentication tokens. All of these things that you type in could be stolen and sent via the info stealer back to the threat actors. Info stealers have been around for a long time. Recently, in the last 3-4 years, the threat actors decided to pivot into a more interesting business model, which is info stealers as a service. So you can see here basically the menu for deploying info stealers as a service from various info stealer groups. So Raccoon and Redline are very, very popular. Jester Stealer has become a little bit more popular, and the prices you see are prices per month per the service. So I can go to Jester Stealer's website and pay them $99 a month. And with those $99 a month, I can give them a list of targets that I want to target, and they'll go and do all of this service of installing the malware on the endpoint and aggregating the information and delivering it to me, all for $99 a month. So I can either give them a list of targets, or I can just browse their database at my leisure and find whatever I need to find there from their database for $99 a month. This is also something that is kind of shifting in the last few years. 10 years ago, in order to be able to do malicious activity on various vectors, when it comes to breaching companies and hacking them, you need a vast knowledge into scripting and network monitoring and really understanding vectors of attack and basically do a lot of the hacking yourself. This would play more to the image of the dark room, hoodie on the head, sitting in front of the keyboard with code running through. That was something real that was 10 years ago. But today, you don't need any of that. You don't need any special skills. All you need to know is where to go, and all you need to have is a cryptocurrency wallet of some sorts. You pay this money, and you're good to go. All you need to do is basically have money today. So that's just to illustrate the point that it's becoming a lot simpler today to run these attacks. So let's take a look at the life cycle of an info stealer and what it actually means. So again, we start with buying the malware or buying the service. We deliver the malware in various ways. It could be done via phishing, that first attack vector that we looked at before, and it could be done via other vectors like placing the malware on a malicious application and sending people links, hey, download this new application. Once the malware is deployed or delivered, the malware starts stealing the information over time, not just one time, but over time, it steals the information of the browser, and it's being sent back to the CNC server. And once it's there, it can be used again directly to breach a corporate network or take over a customer's account, or it can be also used for the purposes of monetary gain in a form of, hey, I have these credentials from this machine, pay me $10 and you'll get the content. And these are the prices. It ranges between $2 to $10 to the most expensive ones will be somewhere around $20 per malware log per machine. So that's all the investment you need in order to get this information. So a few examples from our platform from two well-known banks. One on the left side, you'll be able to see an example from Wells Fargo, wellsfargo.okta.com, and these credentials are from a user that is at wellsfargo.com, which means that it is probably an employee of the organization. Other than the person's Wells Fargo credentials, we also see his personal sign up to Microsoft information, his some sort of TV subscription. So not only do we see that the corporate credentials are being exposed, but also personal credentials are being exposed with those malware logs. And on the right side, we see customer credentials. So in this case, it's a Citibank, and this is the request user ID reminder URL, and they enter the username and password within that within this URL, which means that it's a customer that's looking for their user ID, and these credentials are again from just from yesterday or from 2 days ago. Another thing that the malware logs collect, and we later collect as a cyber intelligence service, is also the browser cookies from the sessions. So not only do they send the credentials or they collect the credentials, they also collect the cookies. They also collect the files and folders on the machine, like the lists of files and folders. They collect screenshots. So there's a variety of information that can be obtained from these malware logs that are harvested from customers and employees. Moving on to the next kind of attack vector, it's account takeover. So account takeover is another, I would say, combination or a vector which is comprised out of different techniques and leads to various consequences, which we'll talk about in a second. But again, in order to take over an account, what you need is credentials. So there are various ways of obtaining credentials. We talked about malware, which are the logs that are collected from machines. We talked about phishing, specifically phishing websites. Like the first example we saw, hey, we're this and this bank, enter your credentials and get a reward, or you have a problem with your account, enter your credentials so we can fix it. That's from a standpoint of phishing. Social engineering, that's a little bit more sophisticated, and I would say a little bit more targeted when it comes to social engineering. It's not usually it's more difficult to do a one-to-many attack when it comes to social engineering. Usually it's more of a one-to-one type of attack, but the more sophisticated ones can also work on multiple people. And the fourth vector, which we didn't talk about, is the hacked databases. So when a threat actor breaches a database, they can basically get information about customers. And it just happened a few days ago. I don't remember which company, but I kind of remember that this happened very recently with a company that all of the customer information was breached and leaked. Threat actors usually either leak the information or sell it. So that's information that comes from hacked databases. And the consequences of account takeovers are varied between if the account was taken over from a employee or from a customer. So from an employee, of course, corporate network, internal information, PII, deployment of ransomware, all these things could be consequences of an employee's machine or employee's account that's been taken over. Customers, of course, identity theft, pulling the money from the account, fraudulent activity, impersonation, and so on. So ransomware, that's the next attack vector or next trending attack vector that we'll talk about. Some key takeaways from our own report, from our 2022 ransomware report that was published at the end of the year. over half of the ransomware attacks hit US-based organizations. So US is the most targeted country for ransomware. The top 10 countries that were targeted remain kind of constant from 2021 to 2022. And Russia, with the latest conflict with the Ukraine, has gained more, has moved up, let's say, to be more targeted after all of what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. Threat actors target Russia a lot more these days. We can see that there's an increase year over year, with 2021 and 2022 being fairly close to each other, but again, there's an increase from 2020, and what we believe is that 2023 will see even more of an increase. Over the last year, we see also relatively consistent numbers, with a small drop or small decline of attacks in between Q1 and Q3. And now this is a very interesting takeaway. The finance is the fourth most targeted ransomware attack, with only 10% of the observed ransomware were in 2022 were based or were targeting the financial services. Other types of cyber attacks and financial crimes are more commonly directed at financial institutions. Again, being in the fourth place is also, it means that the financial services is being targeted, but not as much as other ones. And again, the reasoning for that is because there's some other activities that are more commonly used against the sector. This is an example from our database, from Cyberint's Argus database. One of the recent features that we've added to the platform in terms of monitoring is our capability to monitor the ransomware websites. So each ransomware group has a quote unquote marketing website on the dark web, which is not accessible usually from a regular browser. You have to actually go and utilize a specific browser and go to the dark web in order to see their website. So they have marketing websites there, where they basically highlight a list of victims, or highlight, or as they call it, a list of customers that they've recently attacked or they're going to attack. We are monitoring all of these websites, and we can see from this example here that just from last day, we see, and all of these obfuscated items are company names that are being targeted or have been targeted successfully by Blackbuster, or by Lian, or by Ramp, or from other threat actor groups or ransomware groups. And this is an example I forgot to obfuscate, but this is a customer's name that was attacked or has been hit with ransomware. This is the way that we monitor it for any mentions. And as of yesterday, these were the latest companies that were hit with the ransomware. Now, talking about fraud and identity theft, we see that customers in the last years, 2021, had reported over $8.8 billion in losses based off of fraud, identity theft, and other reports that are kind of in the same capacity. Identity theft, which includes credit card fraud, is a top category, making it to 22% of all fraud reports in 2021. And we saw just the sheer amounts of credit cards that are being leaked. 2.1 million credit cards that just one marketplace released in one day. And American consumers report more than 400,000 cases of credit card fraud in 2021. So if we're looking at this data here, 52% of the companies with more than $10 billion in revenue reported or experienced fraud in the last 24 months. This is a fraud against the company itself. Out of these companies, 18% had financial loss of more than $50 million. So 80% of the companies that were attacked lost more than $50 million based on fraud alone. Among smaller companies that make less than $10 million, 38% were attacked or experienced fraud, and 22% of those lost $1 million or more as a result of that fraud case. So essentially, there's a lot of money that is being lost due to fraud, and there's no distinction between bigger companies or smaller companies that have more money or less money. If we talk about the different flavors of fraud, there's identity theft and credit card fraud. Over 5 million customers in the US report being victim to identity fraud in 2021. 440,000 of those are credit card fraud. Again, we saw a variety of ways of getting credit cards. Bank fraud and unauthorized transactions happen also very frequently, with a loss of over $1.5 million in 2021 in the US alone. Business email compromise and invoice fraud. This is something that we also see in our platform a lot. A lot of kind of combination of attack vectors, standing up a fake email address of Jacob at ceo-bank.com and sending out fake invoices, claiming that, hey, you still owe us money, or we need to get this money for this and this. Also, impersonation can work in that manner. So you see a lot of examples in the wild for that as well. And here's an example of two pieces of information you can purchase today from the dark web or from one of the sources that we cover that can basically build up a person's profile or a person's life. And then with that information, you can essentially go and do a variety of things. So on the top here, we see one of our sources is Telegram. There's a card offered for sale on Telegram with the name Craig somebody, and this is his credit card that is being offered for sale, and his expiration date and a CVV number. Right, so this is offered for sale. I can go and buy this, or even just obtain this. Sometimes they're not even offered for sale; they're just out there for free. I can obtain this, and I have a credit card number, or for the sake of the example, I can have a bank account number, a full name, address, and so on. Then I can go to a different source and look for the same Craig and find him right here with his date of birth that matches the date of birth I get from here, with the address, the full address, the city, and the social security number. All I need to do in order to get all of this information, the full date of birth and the full social security number, is click buy right here. Now, again, you don't need to be some sort of sophisticated hacker to go into this website, click buy, add your cryptocurrency wallet information, and you can just get that delivered to you with this full information here. So you can basically build a picture or build a profile of a real person, and then go and commit fraud, like opening a bank account, asking for a loan, filing an insurance claim, whatever you think, whatever the options are here. We at CyberInt offer as a service to buy these items. So we have a team of analysts around the world, and our analysts are well versed in these types of situation and have developed avatars over the last 6-7 years to be able to go into those dark places of the internet and actually buy those things. So if we monitor a customer and we find that their CEO's social security number is offered for sale, we can alert on it. And then after we alert on it, we can go and buy it. Same goes to credit cards, same goes to bank accounts. If a customer's credit card is being compromised, we can alert on it, and we can also go and buy it and present it to our customers. The last vector of attack before we go into recommendations that I want to talk about is DDoS attacks. And again, don't call it comeback, the return on DDoS attacks. DDoS attacks have always been around, and we've seen an increase in DDoS attacks targeting financial firms, and in Europe, and also overall of 22% increase. The key takeaway from here, it's actually the DDoS attacks can serve as a more of a smokescreen to hide larger, more sophisticated attacks. We see those DDoS attacks. We don't monitor for DDoS attacks, but all the load balancers companies out there and the companies that monitor these things, this is like an indicator of, okay, there's something bigger going on. One of our customers, which is a fashion company from New York, has experienced a DDoS attack, and they kind of raised an eyebrow and said, wait a minute, we've never had this DDoS attack happen to us before. What else is going on that could be related to this? And actually they've requested us to conduct some research related to that DDoS attack, and we were able to identify that it's not a classic DDoS attack. It's more of a service that a dark web company provides competitors to identify pricing changes and identify trends on the customer's e-commerce website. So it wasn't a DDoS attack, it was something a lot larger or different than what they first assumed. So that's the key takeaway from this point. Moving on to recommendations, I think we have plenty of time. Moving on to recommendations, some things that you can do, let's say immediately or relatively quickly, or as we call it, a little security hygiene goes a long way. I think the first thing is security awareness. The failure point is usually the human or the person at the end. So conducting more security awareness training, making sure that your employees in your companies don't click on links, don't talk to people that they don't need to talk to, don't open attachments, anything suspicious they bring up to the security staff. Patch management, a lot of financial services, banks, insurance companies use third parties and tools as part of the day-to-day. So making sure that the patches are up to date and their vulnerabilities cannot be exploited on those various devices, and misconfigurations, vectors of attack into your company. Open ports, exposed web interfaces, exposed cloud storage, misconfigurations in your emails, misconfigurations in your websites. All these things can be paths into your organization that you might not even be aware of. And on the larger scale of things, don't stop at the perimeter. Look outside of the perimeter. We mentioned at the beginning that the difference between mitigating a risk that was found, the difference between mitigating it over 200 days or under 200 days is 25%, $1 million on average. So the sooner you detect these things, the more you go outside of your perimeter, the sooner you'll find these things, and sooner you'll mitigate them and reduce the risk and lose less money. So the main point I want to emphasize here is in the middle, which is use intelligence. Go out there, monitor the clear, deep, and dark web to detect leaked data, to detect credentials, to detect source code, IP, NPII, venture beyond your perimeter in order to see those things. Work with trusted third parties, of course, and monitor your brand and logos as well. That is another vector. We saw the impersonation and phishing attacks. They all originate from monitoring or from brands that are associated with your organization. Over at Cyberint, we provide impactful intelligence. We help with a variety of use cases. All of the use cases that we mentioned during this presentation, we help to alert on and mitigate. from brand abuse to phishing to high-risk vulnerabilities to stolen credentials, dark web chatter, a lot of dark web monitoring, info stealers that we mentioned, data leakage, and more. So with that, I think we are good with some questions before we wrap up.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jacob. Excellent presentation. We can open it up now for questions. So for those of you who have joined us, if you have any questions that you want to ask, please just drop them in the chat. I'll give it 1 second so people have time to type. Okay, we have one question that just came in. So what steps can we take to prevent malware and info stealers infections?
So malware and info stealers are a huge topic. The first thing I would say is security awareness. That's the #1 thing. These malware cannot just appear on somebody's machine unless it's like a targeted attack. What I would say is security awareness, making sure that you have proper procedures in place with your employees. Employees that receive an email from an unknown source shouldn't open attachments. If you have automation in place with your email gateways, your email security devices, if you have some sort of any attachment that comes in goes through a sandbox type of situation, then definitely look into that. But I would say have your security measures in place and awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so a couple more questions. Will you share the recorded video or presentation slides? Yes, we will. This whole session was recorded, and we will send out a link probably by the end of the week with a recording of this so that you can share. And we're happy to share the slides as well. I know there's some good data and research in there, so we can share that as a PDF with all of you by the end of the week as well. Another question, what is the cost range of CyberInt monitoring services? Jacob?
That's a great question. And the answer it varies between, so we have 2 factors that go into our pricing. One is the size of the organization. So an organization that has 100 employees, for example, would have a different price than an organization that has 10,000 employees. And I'm just using employees as an example because what we see as company size is not necessarily the number of endpoints, but there's a number of externally facing assets that the company has. So a company with 100 employees will have substantially less external facing assets than a company with 10,000 employees. That's one parameter that goes into pricing. The second parameter that goes into pricing is the service or the number of use cases we cover. I showed before that there are there were 9 use cases on the screen, but of course we have more. We have over 100 use cases that we cover that fall into 6 different categories. And the more categories that you want us to monitoring, the higher the price gets. I would say the price range, if we want to have numbers, it can start from the low tens of thousands of dollars and go up to the $300,000, $400,000 price range. So it can start somewhere between $20,000, go all the way to infinity. That's our goal. Yeah.
All right, one more question. Does CyberInt provide IOCs like malicious IPs, malicious hashes, etc.?
Yes. So we have an IOC feed, which is comprised of various feeds that we collect, and including our own feed. We are not a tip or an IOC aggregator. We look at IOCs and IOC feed as a complementary addition to what we do. And we also take the approach of quality over quantity. So you won't see, 42 million IOCs like some threat intelligence platforms have with IOCs from 10 years ago. You'll see the most recent, most relevant, most accurate IOCs that we can come up with, and it will be in the 1 to 2 million range versus 40 to 50 million range of IOCs for database.
All right, thank you, Jacob. So I think that does it. We can give it one more second to see if any other questions come in. But I want to thank everyone again for joining. Thank you for taking the time. We appreciate it. And as we've said, we will send out the recording, the link to the recording, as well as these slides. And if you have any other questions about what we do at Cyberint, feel free to reach out either directly to myself or to Jacob. We'll be happy to help. And I think that we can wrap up here. So thank you once again. Thanks to Jacob, and thanks to all of you who joined. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much.